Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The vines tore at Kane Mercer's flight suit as he dragged himself forward, every muscle screaming. His shoulder was dislocated, had been since the drop pod hit atmosphere too steep and split open like an egg against the canopy. He'd crawled for 2 hours through mud that smelled like rot and copper, following the only sound that meant civilization: drums. Rhythmic, insistent, getting louder. He pulled himself up the last ridge using roots that cut into his palms, and the jungle opened onto a clearing. A river, wide and brown, churning with sediment. On the bank, maybe 40 meters down, a crowd had gathered. Blue-skinned figures in woven fiber, their bodies lean and hard, faces painted with white clay in geometric patterns. They formed a half circle around something. Someone kneeling in the mud. Kane's vision blurred, then sharpened. The girl was blue-skinned like the rest, but thinner, skeletal. Her ribs showed through torn fabric, and her skin wasn't just blue, it was glowing. Faint patterns pulsed beneath the surface of her arms, her neck, her face, like bioluminescent veins fighting to break free. The light flickered weakly, arrhythmic, dying. She shook so hard her teeth chattered audibly, even from this distance. The drums stopped. An older figure stepped forward, head shaved, face scarred, holding a staff wrapped in dried river weeds. He raised one hand. The crowd chanted in a language Kane didn't know, but the tone was unmistakable. Condemnation. The shaman, Kane assumed that's what he was, grabbed the girl's shoulder and shoved her forward. She fell face first into the shallows, water splashing up around her. She didn't fight, didn't scream. Just stayed there on her hands and knees, head bowed, glowing patterns flaring brighter for a moment before dimming again. The crowd chanted louder. Weakest. Kane heard that word clearly. It cut through the language barrier like a blade. Cursed. The girl lifted her head. She was looking at the water. Not the crowd. The water. That's when Kane saw it. The surface bulged. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles, too regular to be current. Something massive moved beneath the brown murk, displacing enough water to make the riverbank recede by half a meter. The girl saw it too. Her whole body went rigid. The chanting hit a crescendo. The shaman raised his staff and brought it down hard, the base slamming into the mud. "Let the river take her!" The crowd roared approval. The water exploded. A head rose from the depths, broad as a cargo hauler, plated in overlapping bone-like scales that gleamed wet and dark. Eyes the size of Kane's helmet, milky white with no visible pupil, set deep in a skull that seemed designed for one purpose: crushing. The jaws opened, wide enough to swallow the girl whole, lined with teeth like industrial shears, each one longer than Kane's forearm. The girl didn't move. She stayed on her knees, staring up at the creature as its shadow fell over her. Kane's body moved before his brain caught up. He'd spent 6 years as a combat medic in the Fringe Wars. He'd pulled soldiers out of collapsed bunkers while artillery hammered the ground above. He'd held pressure on severed arteries while plasma fire stitched the air around him. His hands knew how to stop bleeding. His legs knew how to run toward danger when everyone else ran away. He exploded from the foliage, boots hitting the slope at a dead sprint. His dislocated shoulder sent lightning through his chest, but he didn't slow. The crowd's head snapped toward him, mouths open, eyes wide, but he was already past them, hitting the water at full speed. The beast's jaws descended. Kane launched himself off a half-submerged log, caught the creature's lower jaw with both hands, and used the momentum to swing his body up and over. He landed hard on the thing's back, his boots skidding on the wet scales. The creature bellowed, a sound that rattled Kane's teeth and shook water from the trees, and thrashed sideways. Kane went with it, finding a handhold between two plates, his fingers slipping twice before catching. His combat knife was still strapped to his thigh. He yanked it free, raised it high, and drove the blade down into the gap between the creature's skull and spine. The first strike barely penetrated. The second went deeper. The third punched through something vital because the beast's entire body went rigid, every muscle locking simultaneously. Kane wrenched the blade sideways, carving through tissue and nerve, and the creature's head dropped. Its jaws slammed shut a hand's width from the girl's face, throwing up a wall of water and mud. Then the whole massive body tipped forward, slowly, ponderously, like a felled tree, and collapsed into the shallows, with a sound like a building falling. Silence. Kane slid off the corpse, landed knee-deep in water, and stumbled toward the girl. She'd gone under when the beast fell. He grabbed her arm, hauled her up, and she surfaced, gasping, coughing up river water, her whole body convulsing. He pulled her toward the bank. His shoulder was on fire, his vision tunneled. He could hear the crowd murmuring, a low, confused sound like bees, but he focused on getting the girl onto solid ground. She collapsed onto the mud, still coughing. Kine knelt beside her, checking her airway, her breathing. Standard field assessment. She was alive. Lungs clear. Pulse rapid but strong. He sat back, adrenaline draining, leaving him hollow and shaking. The crowd hadn't moved. They stared at him, at the girl, at the dead beast floating in the water, already starting to drift downstream. Then the girl spoke. Not in gratitude, not in relief, in absolute bone-deep terror. "You idiot!" Kane turned. She was staring at him, her glowing patterns flaring brighter than before, pulsing so fast they looked like strobes. "You just killed the only thing keeping us alive." Before Kane could respond, the glowing patterns on her skin surged outward like a shock wave, racing down her arms, up her neck, across her face. She screamed, a raw sound of pure agony, and convulsed so hard her back arched off the ground. Kane grabbed her shoulders. "What's happening? What do I—" Heat bloomed on his forearm. He looked down. A pattern identical to hers was crawling onto his skin. Bioluminescent lines, thin as thread, spreading from where he'd touched her, racing up toward his elbow like living tattoos burning themselves into existence. The shaman pushed through the crowd, staff raised, eyes wide. He grabbed the girl's arm. In the moment his fingers made contact, her patterns exploded outward, doubling in intensity. He jerked back, stumbling, then looked at Kane's arm. The old man's face went pale. He spoke one word, harsh and final, and the crowd erupted. Hands grabbed Kane from behind, dragging him backward. He fought on instinct, throwing an elbow that connected with someone's ribs, but there were too many. They forced him down, pressed his face into the mud, wrenched his arms behind his back. Through the chaos, he heard the shaman speaking. The tone was unmistakable even without translation. Judgment. Someone yanked Kane to his feet. The girl was being held by two villagers, her head hanging, patterns still flaring. The shaman pointed at her, then at Kane, then at the river. He drew a line in the air with his staff, then pointed upstream. The crowd parted. One of the villagers leaned close to Kane and spoke in broken, heavily accented trader tongue. "You go. Both go. Upriver. Die away from village." Kane tried to speak, but someone shoved him forward. He stumbled, caught himself, and looked back. The girl was being pushed forward too, her legs barely supporting her weight. The shaman spoke again, and this time the villagers responded in unison, a single word repeated like a curse. Cursed. They marched them inland, away from the river, following a narrow trail that cut through the jungle. 4 guards walked with them, spears held ready, but they stayed several paces back, as if proximity itself was dangerous. The girl walked ahead of Kine, moving like every step cost her. The glowing patterns had spread across her entire back now, visible through the thin fabric she wore. They pulsed irregularly, sometimes bright enough to cast shadows, sometimes dimming to almost nothing. Kine looked at his own arm. The pattern had reached his shoulder. It didn't hurt, not exactly, but it felt wrong, like something foreign burrowing under his skin, rewriting him from the inside. After 20 minutes, the girl stopped walking. She turned to face Kine, and the rage in her eyes was incandescent. "You didn't save me." Her voice shook. "You murdered our symbiont. He absorbed our sickness, the whole tribe's sickness. Now that he's dead," her breath hitched. "My disease has nothing to hold it back." "I saw a monster about to kill you," Kane said. "You saw teeth." Tears cut tracks through the mud on her face. "We saw treatment." One of the guards barked something and gestured with his spear. They started walking again. Kane's mind raced, trying to piece it together. The creature had been absorbing their illness, some kind of biological filtration system, and he just killed it. "What happens now?" he asked. The girl didn't look back. "The disease spreads. Through me, through you now, through anyone who touches us. That's why they're exiling us. We're contagious. And if we go upriver, we die. She said it flatly, without emotion. Slowly, painfully, the patterns will spread until they cover us completely. Then our organs start failing. Liver first, then kidneys, then heart. How long? Days, maybe a week if we're unlucky. The pattern on Kane's arm pulsed, and for the first time he felt pain. Sharp and sudden, like a hot wire pressed against bone. He stumbled, caught himself against a tree. The girl stopped, turned, looked at him with something that might have been grim satisfaction. "It's spreading faster on you," she said. "Your immune system's fighting it, making it worse." Another spike of pain, this one deeper. Kane's vision grayed at the edges. He gritted his teeth, forced himself upright. They walked for another hour. The guard stopped at a clearing where the trail split, one path continuing upriver, the other looping back toward the village. The lead guard spoke briefly, gesturing at the upriver path, then turned and walked away without looking back. The other three followed. Kane and the girl stood alone in the clearing. The jungle pressed in on all sides, dense and hostile. Somewhere overhead, something shrieked, a sound like metal tearing. The girl sat down heavily on a fallen log. Her whole body was shaking now, the patterns covering her skin flaring and dimming in rapid succession. "What's your name?" Kane asked. She looked up at him, eyes dull. "Rhea." "I'm Kane." He sat down across from her, keeping a few meters of distance. "There has to be something we can do." "There isn't. You said the creature absorbed the sickness. Are there others like it?" Rhea's laugh was bitter. "The river once had two symbiont beasts, one near the tribe, the one you killed, and a second, far upriver," she pointed vaguely north, "wild and dangerous. Legend says it heals only once and takes whoever comes unprepared. Then that's where we go. We won't make it. We're dead if we stay here." Rhea stared at him for a long moment, then looked down at her hands. The patterns had spread to her fingers, crawling across her knuckles like luminous roots. "Why didn't you run away?" she asked quietly. "When you saw what you'd done?" Kane didn't answer immediately. Images flashed through his mind. Faces of soldiers he'd tried to save. Bodies he'd zipped into bags. The moment he'd realized his hands couldn't fix everything. "I don't run," he said finally. It was a lie, and they both knew it. He'd run from the war, deserted his post, stolen a shuttle and burned toward the edge of colonized space until the fuel ran out, and he'd crashed here. But running away from your past wasn't the same as running from someone dying in front of you. Rhea stood up, swaying slightly. "Then we go upriver. Not because I think we'll survive, but because I'd rather die trying than die here." Kane nodded. He pushed himself to his feet, and the moment he stood, a spike of pain so intense it whited out his vision drove through his chest. He collapsed, hitting the ground hard, every muscle locked. Through the haze, he felt hands on him, Rhea rolling him onto his side. "Breathe," she said. "Slow. Don't fight it." The pain receded slowly, leaving him gasping. When his vision cleared, Rhea was kneeling beside him, her own patterns blazing so bright they hurt to look at. "It's spreading faster on you," she said. "Much faster." Kane looked down. The pattern had reached his chest. Glowing lines crawled across his ribs, spreading with each heartbeat. Rhea stood and moved to the edge of the clearing, scanning the undergrowth. She knelt, pushed aside some broad leaves, and started pulling up plants. Small, bitter-smelling things with purple stems. She brought them back, crushed them between her palms, and worked them into a paste. Then she pressed the mixture against Kane's chest, right over the brightest patterns. The agony dropped instantly. Not gone, but muted, bearable. Kane stared at her. "How did you—" "I've been sick my whole life," she said. "You learn what helps and what doesn't." She made more paste, applied it to her own arms. Her patterns dimmed slightly, and some of the tension left her shoulders. "We need to move before dark," she said. "The jungle gets worse at night." They walked until the light began to fail, then found a small stream and made camp on the bank. Rhea showed him which plants were safe to eat, pale tubers that tasted like chalk, and which to avoid. Kane tried to start a fire with his emergency flint, but his hands were shaking too badly. Rhea took it from him without comment and had flames going in under a minute. They sat across from each other, the fire between them, and ate in silence. The patterns on both their bodies provided enough light to see by. Cayen's had spread to his abdomen and lower back. Rhea's covered her completely now, head to toe, turning her into a living constellation. "Tell me about the second symbiont," Cayen said. Rhea poked at the fire with a stick. "The stories say it lives where the river splits. 2 branches, one clear, one dark. The creature guards the boundary. It only appears for those marked by the disease, and it only heals once per lifetime." "What does unprepared mean?" "No one knows. Everyone who's tried to reach it has died before getting there." "Because of the disease?" "Because of the jungle, the rival tribes, the predators." She looked up at him. "Because it's 3 days upriver and we're already dying." Cayen felt the pattern on his chest pulse, a reminder of the clock ticking inside him. "Then we move fast. You can barely stand. I've marched on worse." Rhea's expression said she didn't believe him, but she didn't argue. Instead, she pulled out more of the bitter plants and started making fresh paste. "I'm going to teach you something," she said. "Forest signs. How to know when predators are close. I was trained in survival tactics. Not for this jungle." She pointed at a cluster of leaves overhead, their edges curled inward. "See that? Means something big passed through here in the last hour. They curl to protect themselves from vibrations." Cayen looked closer. She was right. "What else?" She spent the next hour showing him how to read the undergrowth, how to listen for the specific pause in insect sounds that meant something was hunting, how to identify territorial markings from the local predators. In return, Cayen taught her hand signals. Military basics. Stop, move, danger, quiet. She picked them up fast, her hands moving with precision despite the tremors. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Doing what?" "Helping me. Teaching me. You could move faster alone." "We're linked now," Cayen said, gesturing at the matching patterns. "Whatever happens, happens to both of us." "That's not an answer." He met her eyes across the fire. "I killed your cure. I won't let you face this alone." Rhea looked away, but not before he saw something shift in her expression. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. That night, the disease hit him hard. Pain tore through his nervous system in waves, each one worse than the last. He tried to stay quiet, but eventually he couldn't control the sounds he made. Harsh gasps, bitten-off screams. Rhea moved to his side. She held him down when the convulsions started, her hands strong despite her size, and pressed fresh paste to every place the patterns flared brightest. "Breathe with me," she said. "In through your nose. Out through your mouth." Cayen tried, failed, tried again. Eventually, the worst of it passed. He lay there drenched in sweat, shaking. "It's going to get worse," Rhea said, "for both of us." "I know." She sat back but didn't move away. They stayed like that, side by side, watching the fire burn down to embers. "I was the weakest in my tribe," Rhea said suddenly. "Born sick. My parents tried everything. Prayers, herbs, isolation. Nothing worked. The patterns appeared when I was 8. I've been dying slowly ever since." "How old are you now?" 16. Cayen felt something twist in his chest. 8 years. She'd spent 8 years dying. "The tribe tolerated me because of the symbiont," she continued. "It absorbed enough of the disease to keep me functional, but they never let me forget what I was. Cursed, weak, a burden." "You're not weak," Cayen said. Rhea's laugh was sharp. "I can barely walk without shaking. I need herbs just to get through an hour without screaming. How is that not weak? You survived 8 years of what's killing me in days. You know this jungle better than anyone I've ever met. You're keeping both of us alive right now." He paused. "That's not weakness. That's strength no one else in your tribe could match." Rhea didn't respond, but her hands, which had been clenched in her lap, slowly relaxed. They slept in shifts. When Cayen woke at dawn, Rhea was already up, checking their supplies. The patterns on her skin had dimmed overnight, but his had spread further. They now covered his entire torso and were creeping down his legs. "We need to move," Rhea said. She handed him a piece of tuber. "Eat while you walk." They followed the stream upriver. The jungle grew denser, the canopy thicker, filtering the light into a green-tinted gloom. Rhea moved with practiced efficiency, choosing the paths with the least resistance, reading the terrain like text. Cayen tried to keep up. His legs felt heavy, uncoordinated. The patterns pulsed with each heartbeat, and each pulse brought a fresh spike of pain. By midday, they reached a place where the stream widened into a small pool. Rhea knelt to refill their water skins, and Cain sat on a rock, catching his breath. That's when the patterns on both their bodies blazed white-hot simultaneously. Rhea gasped, stumbling backward. Cain's vision whited out, every nerve screaming. When it cleared, Rhea was staring at the tree line. "Something's coming," she whispered. Cain forced himself to his feet, reaching for his knife. "What?" "I don't know, but the disease, it's reacting." The jungle fell silent. No insects, no birds, nothing. Then he heard it. Voices, multiple, speaking low and fast in a language different from Rhea's tribe. Rhea's eyes went wide. Painted skins. Who? Rival tribe. They kill anyone marked as river cursed. She grabbed his arm. "We have to run. Now." They bolted into the undergrowth. Behind them, the voices got louder, sharper, shouting, the sound of pursuit. Cain's body screamed in protest, but he pushed through it, following Rhea as she wove between trees, ducked under low branches, leaped over roots. She moved like she knew exactly where she was going. An arrow hissed past Cain's ear, so close he felt the fletching brush his skin. He glanced back. Figures painted in white and red burst from the foliage, faces masked, weapons raised. "How many?" Rhea gasped. "5, maybe 6. Another arrow. This one caught Cain's sleeve, pinning it to a tree trunk. He tore free, kept running. The ground dropped away suddenly. They slid down a muddy slope, bouncing off roots, unable to stop. Cain hit the bottom hard, rolled, came up in a crouch. Rhea landed beside him. They were in a ravine, steep walls on both sides, the stream cutting through the middle. "Through there," Rhea pointed at a gap in the far wall, barely wide enough to squeeze through. They splashed across the stream. The gap was tight, branches scraping their shoulders, but they forced through. On the other side, the ground was littered with bones, old ones, picked clean and scattered. Rhea pulled Cain behind a fallen tree and pressed a finger to her lips. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. Voices called back and forth above the ravine. Cain controlled his breathing, slowing it despite the pain racing through his body. The patterns on Rhea's arm suddenly flared. She hissed, clamping a hand over the glow, but it was too bright to hide completely. Cain looked at his own arm. His patterns were doing the same thing, reacting to something. Then he understood. "They're close. The disease is sensing them." Rhea nodded. "It reacts to body heat. The closer they get, the brighter we get." A shadow appeared at the gap in the wall, one of the painted skins peering through. Cain went absolutely still. The warrior's eyes swept across the bone-littered ground, then locked onto the fallen tree. He started forward. Cain's hand tightened on his knife. If it came to a fight, he'd have one chance. His body wouldn't hold up for more than a few seconds of combat. The warrior took another step, then stopped. His head tilted, listening. He called out something to the others. A response came from above, urgent. The warrior turned and disappeared back through the gap. Cain waited, not moving, barely breathing. The voices faded. Footsteps retreated. Finally, silence. Rhea sagged against the tree. "They're searching for easier prey. Or they know where we're going and plan to wait." Rhea looked at him. "Then we move faster than they expect." They climbed out of the ravine on the far side, using roots as handholds. Cain's arms shook with the effort, but he made it. Rhea pulled him up the last meter, and they collapsed at the top, gasping. The jungle opened slightly here, enough to see the river in the distance. It was wider now, the current faster. "How much further?" Cain asked. "Half a day if we don't stop." "But—" She looked at him, at the patterns covering his legs now, crawling toward his feet. "You need to rest." "We don't have time. You'll collapse." "Then I'll collapse moving forward." Rhea stared at him for a moment, then nodded. She pulled out the last of the bitter plants and made paste. They applied it quickly, and the pain dimmed enough to function. They walked as the sun descended, the light turning golden, then orange, then red. The patterns on their bodies provided the only illumination as the jungle darkened around them. Cain stumbled more frequently now. His legs barely responded to commands. Rhea stayed close, steadying him when he swayed, guiding him around obstacles he couldn't see through the haze of pain. "Tell me about where you came from," she said. Her voice was tight, like she was fighting her own agony and needed the distraction. "There's nothing worth telling." "Lie to me then. Make something up. Kane forced a breath. I was a medic. Combat. I put soldiers back together when they broke. Were you good at it? Good enough that they kept sending me to the worst places. And you left. I ran, Kane corrected. Stole a shuttle. Burned as far from civilization as I could get before the fuel died. Why? Because I got tired of patching people up just so they could go out and get broken again. Because I realized I was just helping the machine grind people into nothing. He paused. Because I watched a 19-year-old bleed out in my hands while she begged me to save her. And I couldn't. Rhea was quiet for a moment. What was her name? Senna. Did she have family? A sister. Younger. Did you tell them what happened? I wrote a letter. Never sent it. Rhea's hand found his arm, squeezed once. You're not running now. Kane didn't respond. He didn't trust his voice. The river sounds grew louder. They crested a rise, and suddenly the water was below them, wide and churning. But it wasn't one river anymore. It split. Two branches, exactly as Rhea had described. One ran clear, reflecting the last of the twilight. The other was dark, the water black and viscous, moving with unnatural slowness. Between them, a narrow strip of land, bone-littered and silent. The patterns on Rhea's body turned white-hot. Kane's chest burned like fire. The air itself seemed to vibrate, pressure building in his ears. We're here, Rhea whispered. They descended carefully, using switchbacks to manage the steep slope. Kane's legs gave out twice, and both times Rhea caught him, held him upright until he could find his balance again. At the bottom, they stood on the strip of land between the two branches. The bones here weren't old. Some still had tissue clinging to them. Rib cages picked clean, skulls shattered. The jungle held its breath. The river swelled. No wind, no rain, just the water rising slowly, impossibly on both sides. A shadow moved beneath the dark branch. Massive, displacing enough water to make the surface bulge upward. Rhea grabbed Kane's hand. Her fingers were freezing despite the heat radiating from her skin. The surface broke. A head rose from the depths, broader than the first symbiont, plated in scales that shimmered with bioluminescence. Blues and greens and purples, pulsing in patterns that matched the disease on their skin. Eyes like clouded moons reflecting no light, seeing everything. The jaws opened, not attacking. Waiting. The creature's throat glowed from within, a soft, pulsing light that beckoned. Rhea's hand tightened on Kane's. The stories say it can absorb the overload, but only for one host. Kane stared at the creature. How do you know? Because everyone who tried to use it brought only themselves. She turned to face him. You should live. You don't deserve to die for my curse. No. Kane, I killed your cure. I won't let you face this alone. He stepped toward the water. His legs barely held him, but he kept moving. Stop. Rhea grabbed his arm. You don't understand. If we both go in and it can only cure one, then we find out together. The creature lowered its head, bringing its jaws level with the shore. The opening was wide enough for both of them, the throat glowing with that hypnotic pulse. Kyan waded into the dark water. It was warm, thick. It clung to his skin like oil. Behind him, Rhea screamed his name. Then she was beside him, grabbing his arm, refusing to let him go alone. If you die, I die, she said. Then we die together. They stepped forward. The jaws closed around them gently, not crushing, just encompassing. The world went dark except for the pulsing bioluminescence. They floated. No ground beneath them. No air to breathe, but they didn't need it. The creature's throat provided oxygen somehow, drawing it through their skin. The patterns on their bodies tore free. It felt like being flayed alive. Every glowing line ripped away from Kane's flesh, pulling something fundamental with it. He screamed, but no sound came out. Beside him, Rhea convulsed, her entire body seizing as the patterns peeled away in sheets of light. The disease itself made visible. Luminous threads that had burrowed into every cell, rewritten their DNA, poisoned them from the inside. It drifted away from their bodies, suspended in the glowing chamber, and the creature's membranes absorbed it, drew it in like roots drinking water. Kyan felt his illness leave him, felt the wrongness extract itself piece by piece. Each extraction was agony, but beneath it, he felt something else. Space, room to breathe. His cells remembering what it felt like to be clean. Ria's hand found his in the darkness. Their fingers interlaced. The patterns from both their bodies merged in the space between them. Clashed, fought, tried to rewrite each other. The creature pulsed brighter. The membranes worked faster, absorbing, processing, rewriting. The patterns synchronized. Kane felt it happen, felt his altered cells, the ones the disease had changed, link with Ria's, felt their genetic code mirror itself. Two separate people now carrying identical markers. The creature was choosing, not one life over the other, a shared cure, a permanent link. The pain crested. Kane's back arched, every muscle locked. Beside him, Ria did the same, their bodies rigid, fingers still interlaced. Then it stopped. Silence, stillness, floating in the dark. The patterns were gone. The creature's jaws opened. Current pushed them gently toward the light. They tumbled out, fell into shallow water, hit the muddy bank. Kine lay there gasping, real air, real breath. His lungs worked perfectly. His heart beat steady and strong. He looked at his arm. The patterns were gone. Only faint pale lines remained where the glowing disease had lived. Scars, but healed. Ria pushed herself up on her elbows. Her skin was clear. The blue was still there, but no longer marred by the luminous infection. She stared at her hands, turning them over, searching for any sign of the illness. Nothing. She started crying, great racking sobs that shook her whole body. Kane sat up, every movement revealing the absence of pain. He'd forgotten what that felt like, to move without agony. The creature watched them for a moment, those clouded eyes unreadable. Then it lowered back into the water and disappeared, the surface smoothing as if it had never been. Ria looked at Kane. We're alive. Yeah. Both of us. Yeah. She laughed, the sound halfway between joy and hysteria. We're alive. Kane checked himself over methodically. No pain, no tremors. The patterns were truly gone, replaced by those faint pale scars. He looked at Ria's arm. She had the same scars in the same places, mirrored. The creature linked us, Kane said, changed us the same way. Ria nodded slowly. Shared cure. I've never heard of it doing that before. Maybe no one ever tried together. They sat there as the sun set completely, darkness falling over the jungle, but they could still see each other clearly because the faint scars on their skin glowed. Not bright like the disease, just a soft luminescence, enough to see by. What do we do now? Ria asked. We go back. They exiled us. They threw you to the river to die. I think we owe them a conversation. Ria's expression hardened. Something fierce and determined replaced the fear that had lived there for so long. Yes, we do. They walked through the night, following the river downstream. The jungle that had seemed so hostile before now felt different. Not safe, but navigable. They moved with confidence. Ria leading, Kane watching their flanks. The hand signals he'd taught her came naturally now. She used them without thinking. Stop, danger, clear. And he responded instantly. They moved like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. By dawn, they reached familiar territory. The clearing where the guards had abandoned them. The trail leading back to the village. Ria stopped at the edge of the clearing. They might kill us on sight. They might try. Kine, we're not the same people they exiled. He held up his arm, the faint scars glowing softly. We're proof the river can heal. That changes everything. Ria stared at the trail for a long moment, then nodded. Then let's give them something to talk about. They walked down the trail side by side. The village appeared through the trees, woven structures built on stilts above the floodline, smoke rising from cooking fires. Morning routine. People moving between dwellings, carrying water, preparing food. The first person to see them was a child, a girl maybe 8 years old, carrying a basket of river weeds. She looked up, saw them, and dropped the basket. Her scream cut through the morning air. Figures poured from the dwellings. Warriors grabbed weapons. Elders emerged, faces painted, expressions shocked. The whole village gathered at the edge of the settlement, a wall of bodies blocking the path. The shaman pushed to the front. He stared at Ria, then at Kane, his eyes moving from their faces to their arms, to the faint glowing scars visible even in daylight. He spoke one word, a question. Rhea answered in their language, her voice clear and strong. Kine didn't understand the words, but he heard the tone. Not pleading, stating fact. The shaman stepped forward, slowly, like approaching something dangerous. He reached out and touched Rhea's arm. Nothing happened. No flare of patterns. No surge of disease, just skin and faint scars. The shaman pulled his hand back, stared at his palm, then touched her again. Pressed harder. Still nothing. He turned and spoke rapidly to the crowd. Murmuring spread through the gathered villagers. Confusion, fear, wonder. A woman pushed through the crowd. Older, her face bearing similar features to Rhea's. She stopped a few paces away, staring. "Mother," Rhea said quietly. The woman's hands flew to her mouth. She took a step forward, hesitated, then rushed forward and grabbed Rhea, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Rhea stiffened, then slowly relaxed, her arms coming up to return the hold. The woman pulled back, gripped Rhea's face in both hands and spoke rapidly. Questions, demands, relief. Rhea answered, pointing at Kane, then upstream, then at her scars. She spoke for several minutes, and the crowd listened in absolute silence. When she finished, the shaman approached Kane. The old man's eyes were sharp, assessing. He spoke in broken trader tongue. "You kill the healer. You take cursed girl to die." He paused. "Both return." "How?" "The second symbiont," Kane said. "Upriver, where the river splits. Legend. Story for children. It's real. It healed us both." The shaman studied him for a long moment, then looked at Rhea. "The girl speak true?" "Every word." The old man's expression shifted. Not quite belief, but the beginning of reconsideration. He turned and spoke to the crowd again, and this time the murmuring grew louder. A young warrior stepped forward. Painted marks covered his arms, early stages of the disease. He spoke to the shaman, gesturing at his own patterns. The shaman nodded. The warrior approached Rhea and knelt, head bowed, offering his marked arm. Rhea looked at Kane. He saw the question in her eyes. "Your choice," he said. She knelt beside the warrior, took his arm, and examined the patterns. They were fresh, barely spreading past his wrist. She spoke to him in their language, her tone measured and calm. The warrior listened, then nodded. He stood, bowed to her, and stepped back into the crowd. 3 more villagers stepped forward, 2 adults and a child, all marked with early patterns. They knelt before Rhea. Kane watched as something fundamental shifted in her posture. The girl who'd been thrown to the river, who'd called herself weak and cursed, straightened her spine and met their eyes without flinching. She spoke to each of them, examined their marks, explained what she and Kane had learned about the second symbiont, the journey, the danger. She didn't promise salvation. She promised truth. When she finished, the villagers stood. The child, a boy maybe 10 years old, stepped forward and hugged her. Quick and fierce, then gone, running back to his mother. The shaman watched all of this. Then he raised his staff and slammed it down, calling for attention. He spoke. The words were formal, ritualistic. Whatever he was saying carried weight. When he finished, the crowd responded in unison. Not a chant this time, an acknowledgement. Rhea's mother stepped forward and spoke. Her words were soft but clear, and Kane saw several villagers nod in agreement. The shaman turned to Kane. "You are permitted to remain, as guest, as..." He searched for the word. "As one who shares the marked one's fate." "Her name is Rhea," Kane said. The shaman's eyebrow raised slightly. "The girl who was cursed is no longer cursed. She is..." Another pause, searching for translation. "She is marked by survival. This is different." He turned and walked back toward the village center. The crowd parted to let him through, then slowly dispersed, people returning to their morning routines but casting glances back at Rhea and Kane. Rhea's mother spoke to her daughter again, gesturing toward one of the dwellings. An invitation. Rhea looked at Kane. "She's offering food, a place to rest. You should go. You're coming with me." "I don't think..." "You're marked the same as me." Rhea's voice was firm. "Where I go, you go. That's how this works now." Kane nodded slowly. The link the symbiont had created wasn't just medical. It was visible, permanent. They carried matching proof of their survival. They followed Rhea's mother to a dwelling near the village edge. Inside it was simple. Woven mats, clay pots, a small fire pit. The woman gestured for them to sit, then began preparing food. Rhea sat cross-legged and Cain lowered himself beside her. His body was still adjusting to the absence of pain. Every movement felt strange without the accompanying spike of agony. "What did the shaman say?" Cain asked. "That we've proven the old story's true, that the second symbiont is real and can cure those marked by disease." She paused. "And that the tribe owes us a debt." "Do you believe him?" "I believe he's afraid of looking like he tried to kill someone the river itself chose to save." Her expression was grim. "Politics, even here." Rhea's mother brought them food, roasted tubers, river fish, bitter greens that tasted like the medicine Rhea had made. They ate in silence while the woman sat across from them, watching. Finally, she spoke. Rhea translated. "She wants to know what it was like, inside the creature." Cain thought about how to answer. Like drowning and being born at the same time. Rhea relayed this and her mother nodded slowly, as if it confirmed something she'd suspected. The woman spoke again, longer this time. Rhea's expression shifted as she listened. "What is it?" Cain asked. "She says when I was born the patterns appeared within hours. The shaman wanted to kill me immediately, said I was cursed, that keeping me would doom the tribe." Rhea's voice was steady but quiet. "My mother refused, fought the whole village to keep me alive. She made a deal with the shaman. If the symbiont could keep me stable, I would live. If not, she would deliver me to the river herself." Rhea's mother spoke again, and this time her voice cracked. "She says she's sorry," Rhea translated. "For every day she made me feel like a burden. For every time she treated survival as obligation instead of love." The woman reached out, took Rhea's hand, and pressed it to her forehead. She spoke through tears. Rhea's own eyes glistened. "She says she should have walked into the river with me instead of letting them throw me in alone." Cain looked away, giving them privacy for the moment. Through the open doorway, he could see the village. Children playing, adults working, normal life continuing despite everything. But several people kept glancing toward this dwelling, toward Rhea, the girl they'd called weakest, cursed, now marked by survival. Rhea's mother finally released her hand and stood. She spoke one more sentence, then left the dwelling, pulling the door covering closed behind her. "What did she say?" Cain asked. "That she needs to speak with the other families, the ones with marked children." Rhea wiped her eyes. "To tell them there's hope." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside voices rose and fell. The village carried on. "We should rest," Rhea said. "Actually rest. No watching for predators. No running." "When was the last time you slept without pain?" Cain asked. "I don't remember." "Then sleep. I'll keep watch." "Cain, I spent 6 years in combat zones. I can function on no sleep. You need this." Rhea looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She lay down on one of the mats, and within minutes, her breathing deepened. Cain sat by the doorway, watching the village. His mind worked through everything that had happened. The crash, the execution, the exile, the cure. 3 days. His entire life had restructured in 3 days. He looked at his arm. The faint scars glowed softly in the shadows of the dwelling. Permanent reminder. Permanent link. He'd deserted the war to escape being responsible for other people's lives. Now he was bound to one. Hours passed. The sun climbed. Villagers moved through their routines. Some approached the dwelling, left small offerings outside. Food, water, woven tokens. Then departed without speaking. Rhea slept through it all. When she finally woke, it was late afternoon. She sat up slowly, blinking in confusion, then saw Cain still sitting by the door. "You were supposed to rest too." "I did, in my way." She moved to sit beside him, looking out at the village. "They left gifts." "I noticed." "They're afraid of us." Respect and fear look similar from the outside. Rhea was quiet for a moment. "I don't want their fear." "Then show them something else." "Like what?" "Like how to survive what they think will kill them." Rhea turned to look at him. "You think we should lead others upriver. I think you should. I'll help however I can, but this is your people. Your tribe. Your choice." "Our choice," Rhea corrected. "We're linked, remember? Where I go, you go." That's exactly how it works." She stood, squared her shoulders. "Come on, we have people to talk to." They emerged from the dwelling. The village center was busy, evening meal preparations underway, people gathering around cooking fires. When Rhea appeared, conversations faltered. She walked to the central fire where the shaman sat with the village elders. Cain followed a step behind. Rhea spoke. Her voice carried across the clearing, strong and clear. Cain couldn't understand the words, but he heard the tone. A statement, not a request. The shaman listened, his expression unreadable. When Rhea finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, spoke one sentence. Rhea turned to Cain. He wants us to prove we're truly cured. Touch the marked ones and show that the disease doesn't spread. Now! Now! The young warrior from earlier stepped forward, the one with patterns crawling up his arm. He knelt and offered his marked skin. Rhea knelt beside him, placed both hands on his arm and held them there. The crowd pressed closer, watching intently. Nothing happened. No flare, no spread, just contact between marked and formerly marked skin. She held the contact for a full minute, then released him, examined his arm. The patterns were unchanged, neither better nor worse. The disease is contained in him, Rhea said, speaking loudly enough for the whole village to hear. And gone from me. We don't carry it anymore. We carry only the scars of having survived it. She stood and turned to the crowd. I will lead any who are marked to the second symbiont. I'll teach you what I learn, show you the path, but I won't lie about the danger. Some of you might not survive the journey. A woman stepped forward, the mother of the child who'd hugged Rhea earlier. She spoke, her voice shaking. Rhea translated for Cain. She asks if there's truly hope for her son. Tell her yes, Cain said, but tell her the truth too, about the jungle, the rival tribes, the cost. Rhea relayed this. The woman listened, then nodded. She spoke again. She says her son will die anyway if he stays. Rhea translated. Slow death or fast death with hope. She chooses hope. 3 more families stepped forward, then 2 more, all with marked children or adults in early stages. The shaman watched this unfold. Finally, he raised his staff. You will lead them upriver in 5 days, he said in trader tongue. Time to prepare, to gather supplies, to say farewells. He paused. If any die, their blood is yours to carry. I know, Rhea said. If any survive, their gratitude is yours to bear. I know that too. The shaman nodded slowly. Then prepare. The river will test you again. He turned and walked away. The crowd dispersed slowly, families gathering around their marked members, speaking in low, urgent voices. Rhea stood in the center of it all, and Cain saw her hands shaking. The confidence she'd projected was real, but so was the fear beneath it. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I do. Why? Because I was the cursed weakling they threw away, and I came back alive. If I don't use that to help others, she shook her head. Then what was the point? Cain understood. He'd spent years running from the weight of other people's lives. Rhea was choosing to carry it. Then we prepare, he said. Properly this time. We know the dangers. We know the path. We plan for everything. We can't plan for everything. No, but we can plan for most things. They prepare for 5 days. Rhea teaches jungle survival. Cain runs combat drills. 8 marked ones join. The young warrior, 3 adults, 4 children. On the 3rd day, a scout bursts into the village center, breathing hard. He speaks rapidly to the shaman. The old man's face darkens. He turns to Rhea. Painted skins, hunting marked ones near the border. Moving closer. Murmurs ripple through the gathered families. The shaman slams his staff down. The group must be limited. Only the strongest. Only warriors who can fight. No, Rhea says, the children will slow you. Get everyone killed. The children deserve the same chance I had. A mother pushes forward, gripping her daughter's shoulders. The girl, maybe 7, patterns covering both arms, looks up at Rhea with enormous eyes. Take her, the mother pleads. Please, she's strong enough. She can... The shaman cuts her off. The weak ones stay. Final word. The girl pulls away from her mother, walks straight to Rhea. Her voice is small but clear. If I stay, I die slowly. If I go, I die trying. I choose trying. Silence. Cain watches Rhea's face, sees the choice crystallize. They all come, Rhea says. Every single one who wants to live. The shaman's eyes narrow. Their blood will be mine to carry. You already said that. She kneels, meets the girl's eyes. What's your name? Sierra. Sierra, can you walk all day without complaining? The girl nods. Can you stay quiet when I tell you to hide? Another nod. Then you're coming. Sierra throws her arms around Ria's neck. Her mother collapses, sobbing with relief. On the 5th day, they depart at dawn. The marked ones walk between Ria and Cain. Parents watch from the village edge, silent. The journey takes 4 days. The children need breaks. The adults move slower. On the 2nd day, fresh tracks. Painted skins territory. Cain scouts ahead, finds a hunting party. 5 warriors moving parallel. They redirect, lose 3 hours. Avoid contact. That night, Sierra's disease flares. She convulsions, screaming, patterns blazing. Her mother holds her. Ria applies paste. Cain monitors vitals. An hour before it passes, Sierra goes limp, barely breathing. She won't make it another 2 days, her mother whispers. She will, Ria says. They break camp at first light, move faster. The young warrior carries Sierra. By afternoon, Cain has her on his back, her small body frighteningly light. At sunset on the 4th day, the river splits. Bone-littered shore, 2 branches, clear and dark. Pressure builds. The marked ones stare. It's real, the young warrior breathes. The dark water swells. The massive bioluminescent head rises, scales pulsing with hypnotic light. Jaws open, glowing throat beckoning. Ria steps forward. Walk into its mouth. Trust it knows what to do. The young warrior goes first. The jaws close gently around him. He vanishes into the depths. One by one they follow. 3 adults, 3 children. Finally, Sierra. Cain carries her to the water's edge. Her mother walks beside them. Will she survive? The woman asks. It saved us when we were nearly gone, Ria says. It can save her. The creature lowers its head. Cain wades in, Sierra on his back. She stirs, opens her eyes. I'm scared. You're not alone, Cain says. We're all waiting on the other side. She slips from his back, lets the current pull her in. The jaws close. They wait on shore. Hours pass. Darkness falls. Near midnight, the river swells. The creature rises. Jaws open. The young warrior tumbles out. Clear skin, pale scars. Then the adults, all cured. Then 3 children, pulled onto shore by weeping parents. 7 survivors. Sierra's still missing. The creature waits. Jaws open. A small form drifts to the surface. Pale, still. Cain dives, grabs her, pulls her out, lays her on sand. No breathing. He checks for pulse. Finds one, weak. Tilts her head, clears airway, starts rescue breathing. Ria drops beside him. Compressions. They work in sync. 30 seconds. A minute. Sierra convulses, coughs, vomits water. Eyes open, clear skin, cured. Her mother collapses on her, sobbing. 8 for 8, Ria says quietly. They walk back downstream. 5 days. The formerly marked move without pain, marveling at simple movement. Sierra stays close to Cain, asking questions about everything. He answers patiently. Evening of the 5th day, they crest the final ridge. The village spreads below. Drums begin. Celebratory rhythm. The village pours out. Parents find their children, alive, cured. The shaman touches each returned traveler, confirming. Celebration lasts through the night. Food, drums, dancing. The cured children run through the square, laughing. Sierra drags Cain into the dancing. He protests. She's persistent. Ria appears beside him. They spin through firelight, surrounded by people they helped save. Later, the shaman approaches. You have proven the old ways, brought hope to the marked. We did what needed doing, Ria says. What do you want? Teachers for the marked children, supplies for future expeditions, and strike the word cursed from how we speak about them. The shaman nods. It will be so. He pauses. You were the weakest we threw to the river. Now you are among the strongest. No, Ria says. I'm the same person. You just finally see me. The shaman's expression shifts. Shame. And he walks away. They return to their dwelling. Collapse onto mats. Cain? Ria's voice is soft in darkness. Yeah? We're bound now. Permanently. These scars won't fade. Is that a problem? No. She turns to face him. But it's permanent. Where I go, you go. When I lead the next group, you come. We're linked. I know. And you're okay with that? He looks at his scars, then hers. Mirrored marks, shared proof. Yeah, I'm okay with that. She smiles. Good, because you're stuck with me now. They sleep deeply, dreamlessly. Morning comes. Ria's already outside, speaking with parents. More marked children. More families seeking hope. Kane emerges. Sierra runs up, grabs his hand. Are you leading the next group? Ria leads, I help. Can I help too? I want to show them it's not scary. It is scary, but it's worth it. That's what Ria said. Kane looks down at this small, fierce girl who nearly died and came back ready to face the world. Yeah, it is. Families approach. Ria steps forward. Kane moves beside her. Two people marked by survival. Two people choosing to carry hope. The village gathers. Drums beat steady. Together they plan the next journey. Where the tribe once threw its weakest to die, it now prepares to heal them. Where fear ruled, hope grows. Kane looks at Ria. She meets his eyes. Everything they've been through reflects back. Pain, fear, desperate fight. The choice to share a burden neither could carry alone. They walked into death together, walked out alive. Now they stand together, pale mirrored scars glowing faintly in morning sun. Two lives permanently, visibly linked. Not through magic, not through destiny, through choice, through refusing to face darkness alone.